Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us to the regular scheduled village board meeting on February 11th, 2025. Prior to this evening's commencement of our village board meeting, we will open this evening with a public hearing regarding the County Line Solar by RPIL Solar 12 LLC annexation agreement. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to address the village board during this public hearing? Lon, I think you had referenced you had received one comment.
I did, yes.
Please.
This is an email that was addressed to Natalie. Hi, Natalie. I am the manager for S&E Series 6, the 87-acre parcel on County Line Road, close to the solar project. I got your notification about the request for an additional variance and wanted to make clear our opinion. We are against the solar project, and even more so with the variances requested. We just don't see where the value is to such projects. Solar is an eyesore, even without variances, and brings little value in my opinion. We are also concerned about rumors circulating that County Line Solar is getting potential breaks from various recaptures that would end up being spread to other adjacent properties, resulting in larger recaptures for those not privy to the same, quote, deal, unquote. These include roadway, sewer, water, etc. If true, this would be unfair, to say the least, and generate problems going forward. If I had not had eye surgery this morning, I would have more to say, but I've tried reaching you by phone on several occasions and wanted our feelings on the record. Scott Samuelson, Managing Partner, S&E Series 6.
Was that the only communication you had received for the public hearing, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then are there any other questions, comments on the public hearing for the solar project? Seeing none, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Amos, second by trustee Chapman. All in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? None? All right, public hearing has been closed. We'll move into this evening's order of business. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lana, roll call, please.
Mayor DeBold.
Here.
Trustees Amos.
Here.
Brockman.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Luciano and Selfridge.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum for this evening to conduct business. Are there any citizens wishing to address the village board this evening? Seeing none, we'll move into this evening's consent agenda. Item number 1 will be approval of the regular meeting minutes for January 28th, 2025. Item 2 will be approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes for January 28th, 2025. Approval of accounts payable in the amount of $533,644.95. Item 4 will be approval of a payment in the amount of $43,573.04 to Springbrook Holding Company for the annual subscription services. Item 5 will be approval of a payment in the amount of $11,760 to Motorola Solutions for our 2025 annual body worn camera program. Item 6 will be approval of a payment in the amount of $14,220 to TKB Associates for the Laserfish Cloud Services and Migration. Is there anything, any board members need questions or need any further clarification on said agenda? If not, you can motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion, trustee Chapman. Second, trustee Amos. Roll call to pay the consent.
Brockman.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Selfridge.
Yes.
And Amos.
Yes.
All right, moving on to reports of communications. Lon, was there anything else that you had received prior to this evening's meeting?
No, sir.
Thank you. Moving into this evening's order of business. Business item number 1 will be consideration for approval of an ordinance approving and authorizing annexation agreement for RPIL 12 LLC. This is the County Line Solar in Kendall County. This item is up for a first read. Ms. Engel.
So we have five applications before us this evening. First is for an annexation agreement, the second is for zoning within the I-2 zoning district, the third is for a conditional use for a commercial solar energy facility, the fourth is for some zoning code variations, and the fifth is for some development regulations modifications. The subject site is a 35.520 acre property on the west side of County Line Road. It is south of Bell Road and north of the proposed Mountain Road extension. As you can see on the map, the property is shown bound in blue. On the north and northeast side, there are homesteads. On the south is land that is currently farmed that's owned by Vista Energy, the company that owns the Tinker plant. On the west is the Dollinger Farm, and then on the east is the S&E Investments property. We did receive an email from Mr. Samuelson, and we've been speaking with Mr. Erickson, who's his partner. That is the one property that separates this one from the village of Shorewood. So when the S&E property, investments property is annexed, this property will part shore the city annexation agreement is approved.
Hey Natalie, turn your mic on. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm not on the screen. Okay. The property is to be developed in Kendall County under the Shorewood regulations. This is typical with the Chatham annexation agreement. The property proposal is to zone it I-2 and to issue a conditional use permit for a commercial solar energy facility. The proposal is for several rows of photovoltaic solar arrays. The arrays are typically 11.7 feet apart according to the plan, and there is approximately a 20-foot wide open area around the perimeter of the solar field. In addition to the solar arrays, there will be some other equipment, but the solar arrays themselves will be a maximum of 20 feet tall. They will be single axis arrays that will move to follow the sun. The other types of equipment they may have are string inverters that will be in line with the other equipment, as well as transformers. The transformers are expected to be pad mounted. They'll be about 5 by 7 feet in area and 6 feet tall, which is pretty typical for the larger transformers we would see outside of a commercial building. Access to the site will be off of County Line Road. In your packet, it's circled in yellow. There will be an area that is highlighted in yellow as well. That'll be a paved area that will lead up to the solar field. The solar field will be surrounded by a chain link farm type fence, as well as by some landscaping. There will be 2 openings in the fence, one to lead to the access road, which will bring you to County Line Road, and then the other one that would lead to the future Mound Road extension that would really only be used in case of emergencies. Once inside the fence, there will be a gravel road which will take us to the equipment area in the center of the site. There are also shown some fire lanes and a setback between the fence and the solar arrays, which the Minooka Fire District has looked at. This will be our first foray into the Minooka Fire Protection District, so they'll be in charge of the reviews as well as the firefighting on this property. In the packet, you'll see there are 3 different types of landscaping shown surrounding the property. They're color-coded. Basically, what they're showing is a mixture of different evergreen trees, different evergreen shrubs, and different deciduous shrubs. And they've broken it up so that you don't have the same trees repeating over and over again. Outside of this fenced area, there will be a combination of turf grass and pollinator garden. The exact location of those will be figured out at final engineering, but in general, the location of the pollinator garden is shown in green around the wetland areas. And sorry, I'm just trying to get this up on the screen. I'm sorry, if everybody doesn't mind giving me 1 second. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and if not, I'm going to try to get this up on the screen for you.
The representative from the solar company here, is there anything that you guys want to add while she tries to pull the technology component back together there?
Yes, thank you. Maybe I'll take this moment to introduce ourselves. My name is Ben Jacoby. I'm the attorney for the project company. Jeremy Price is with me. He's the lead developer for the project company. And then the landowner participating here, Dennis Martin, is also with us. We're honored to have his presence. Just wanted to introduce ourselves, the project, the annexation agreement that's before you tonight. The sequence of events that we're requesting is an improvement of the annexation agreement, which brings this parcel within the jurisdiction of the village, and then and it'll be annexed conditioned on the parcel becoming contiguous with the village, and then the approval tonight also of the conditional use permit, and then the variances listed, 6 variances tonight, and we're requesting that to occur tonight and for a waiver of the second reading if the council were so inclined. Natalie described the project, so I won't go over that again. I wanted to address a couple of the comments that we heard from the letter in the hearing that was just opened and closed. And in particular, the citizen remarked that the project was getting recapture breaks, or that he believed or he had heard somewhere that we were getting recapture breaks. That's not the case. The annexation agreement requires recapture payments in the event that utilities are extended and we take advantage of them. So that's set out in the annexation agreement. That's covered. I didn't want that to be left unresponded to here. Otherwise, we had a ZBA hearing. We received a unanimous recommendation for approval. We were honored to do so. We presented the entire project and package to the board at that time. There were no objectors at that hearing. So we would hope to have earned the village's vote on this project. It'll carry a number of benefits for the village. Probably the most significant to the village at this time is an extension of the boundaries, an extension of Mound Road. The landowner has agreed to dedicate 100 feet for Mound Road to be extended to the south end of that parcel to unlock westerly. I was hoping a map was behind me. Nope. To unlock westerly, to the parcel to the west there. There you go. So once S&E Investments is annexed in, then our site will be annexed in, and Mound Road can be extended, continued west, and that Dollinger parcel and Vistra Energy parcel will all be open. So that's in addition to, of course, the tax, the property tax creation that the project will bring to the village, which is about 10 times what an agricultural project brings. These things are fair market assessed value at $218,000 per megawatt. So a 5 megawatt project is a fair market value of a little over $1 million, which is adjusted up for inflation. At the moment, it's just adjusted up 1.28. For inflation, and then it's depreciated over 25 years to a bottom of 30%, can't go lower than 30%. So over the life of the project, it's looking at about $1 million in property tax revenue to the taxing bodies, of which the village will be one once the site is annexed in. It's also consistent with the village's comprehensive plan, which is important. I know the village has been picky, and that's good, and it has suggested that these types of projects are good on industrial planned areas, and this area is an industrial planned area, so we were selective in that process. We feel it was a good fit, which is why we went through this process with the village. I'll turn it over to Jeremy to give a couple of the details on the project and to answer any project-specific questions, but as I said, I'm the lawyer. I'm here as a legal resource and happy to answer questions on that front as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Mayor DeBold, trustees, staff, thanks for your time. Don't have too much here other than I wanted to thank you all for the amount of effort and energy that's taken place over the last 2 years to get to this point. As Ben described, we think there's a variety of benefits both for the immediate future as well as the expansion of the village of Shorewood. And we're happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I think you said at the public or at the planning and zoning there would be no more infrastructure needed. There was enough poles and line along county line or Mountain Road to accept the amount of electricity you're going to produce.
That's correct. There'll be a couple poles just for some of the equipment, roughly 4-ish, but the existing 3-phase running along county line is sufficient to supply the project and to generate.
Okay, thank you.
I know I should know this, but just read my electrical bill enough. But a 5 megawatt producer on the average household, how many average households would that take care of? I think the residents would like to hear the generation power based on what they understand.
Absolutely. The simple answer is it's about 1,000 homes. I mean, it depends on how much energy you're using on an individual basis, but a 5 megawatt project operating at its maximum capacity is roughly 1,000 homes.
1,000 homes, so
Yep,
about
so
a sixth of the village.
a fair chunk,
Okay, thank you.
of course.
Was your project a community solar project where somebody needs to subscribe to regain any benefits out of your project as well?
Absolutely. This would be community solar opt-in, roughly 10% savings. And, you would typically pay a program administrator, and then you just receive those credits on your utility bill through ComEd.
Mayor, if I could just comment?
Sure, that, council's on the phone there. Yes, sir.
Mr. Jacoby had mentioned that the property is subject to pay recapture for improvements by others. I'm looking at the draft annexation agreement, and it only provides that they would pay a recapture if the property is developed with something other than a solar farm. Then I'm looking at section 31B. That's not your understanding. We're certainly happy to correct that.
Well, I can address that. Thank you, Attorney Silverman. Yeah, that was my understanding as well, in that the project itself doesn't require any sewer or water, so it doesn't extend the utilities out itself. If a developer develops a project, to the west, and those utilities are extended, then we wouldn't need access to those utilities. But when the project is at the end of its life, after 30 or 40 years, the property will be developed into something else, most likely. It'll be an I-2 district at that point. And when that development occurs, if that development requires access to sewer and water, then that development would be subject to the recapture provision. So, sorry if I was unclear on that, but that's the provision, and that's normal for a type of development that doesn't require utility extension to itself.
Thank you. I apologize for the technical difficulties. It was user error. I will try to get better at that one. This is what will appear on the screen right now is the surrounding area map that shows the one property between the village of Shorewood and this site. This map describes basically the comprehensive plan where we talk about industrial uses on the area. When we talked about the comprehensive plan, we also talked about buffering from the residential to the north and extending Mound Road. This plan shows what the solar energy facility will look like, as well as the rows of solar arrays. There'll be a maximum of 20 feet tall. This is the transformer and the string inverters. These are examples of the type of equipment they would use, pretty similar to what we would see. I think that transformer is actually pretty similar to what we looked at when we looked at the recent YMCA plans and the vet clinic plans, so they're about those same size. This one I'll go into a little bit more depth. The access from County Line Road is circled in yellow, and then the area highlighted in yellow will be the asphalt drive. In purple, you see the fence that surrounds the whole solar array field. It's a farm type fence, but it will be located behind the landscape screening, so you'll see very little of it. The area highlighted in blue is the gravel area that leads to the equipment pad. The orange is what's shown on this version of the plan for the fire access route. And then the purple are the two breaks in the fence. There will be sort of a decorative swing type fence that blocks over closer to County Line Road. And then the one that you see at the southwest corner of the property is simply for emergency access in case there's a fire and the firemen need to get out, but it won't be used by the public. These are the three different types of landscaping where they've intermittently used different groups of trees and shrubs. They're talking about using full-size evergreen trees. They'll be at least 6 feet tall when they're planted, as well as evergreen and deciduous shrubs. Our code does call for the use of deciduous overstory trees, things like maples and oaks and things like that. They have proposed to use the same number of plant units, but to use the evergreens and the shrubs as a substitution because it's better for getting the sun to the solar arrays. What you see here is the interconnection. As Jeremy Price noted, they do have what they need along the ComEd lines and along the road, but they will need between 4 and 7 interconnection poles. These will look like typical poles and like what you see on the screen. Their preferred option is to add 4 poles, which is option number 2 in your plan. If they have to go with the original thing that was talked about with ComEd, it would be up to 7 poles, and on that, the biggest piece of equipment would be a 3-foot tall pole-mounted transformer. All other electric utilities will be underground. They need telephone and data lines. Those will be underground. What we talked about when we talked about the recapture is really a little bit different. This company will not be connecting to the village's water system, nor are they planning to install any water lines or water mains. There will be no sanitary sewer connection, nor any installation of sanitary sewer mains. Typically, when a project like this develops, they do install those things, but because this is a solar energy facility, they don't need them, and they've requested not to install them. If, however, it develops as something other than a solar farm, so say they decide this is not a great location for a solar farm, and they flip the property and they sell it to somebody who wants to build a factory or, you know, a flex use or an office building, those people would be required to put in the lines as would be typical. The stormwater management, at this point, based on this site plan, it doesn't appear that stormwater management is necessary, but what you're looking at today is the preliminary phase. So as we get into the final engineering phase, we will review that carefully, and the engineers will make sure that they don't need any stormwater management facilities, and if they do, then when that comes back to you for final engineering, that will be included. Right now, they're not planning any on-site lighting at all. However, if any lighting is added, let's say a switched light by the transformers or something like that, that'll have to be reviewed at the time of building permit. But right now, there is nothing planned. They've met all of the property setback lines. We require 100 feet from adjacent properties. They've got at least 100 feet from each property. They did ask for a variance to have the gravel driveway within the property line setback. I would say typically we don't require that. We consider that a permitted obstruction, but they do want to make sure that they've got all their T's crossed and I's dotted, so we do have that included. They have to be at least 150 feet from any dwelling. They do have a minimum of 190 feet from the dwelling, so they have met all of the setbacks. In terms of rights of way, they have asked not to build any roads. Typically when a development comes in and develops as, you know, a industrial building or residential building, they do improvements to the roadways. In this case, you would expect that they would do improvements to County Line Road. Because they're a solar facility, they've asked not to do this. They will, however, donate the necessary right-of-way, which is measured from the center line 50 feet out. That gives us enough room for our road cross-section that we expect there. We've also asked them for a right-of-way dedication of 150 feet along their south property line, which would give us enough space should we need to build Mound Road in the future. Because they're dedicating Mound Road right-of-way, they've asked for relief on the setbacks so that instead of having a 100-foot setback from the right-of-way line, they'd only be required to have a 50-foot setback from the right-of-way line. Given that there's only an informal emergency access there, we don't expect that to cause a problem. Their zoning variance requests, I did mention some of them, but I'll just go over them quickly. They've got a request to allow those 4 to 7 overhead power poles. They've got requests regarding landscaping. They would like to substitute the overstory trees for evergreens and shrubs in the surrounding landscaping. They also would like to avoid putting in the parkway trees, but in lieu of putting in the parkway trees, they would make an equivalent donation so that the village could then go and plant those parkway trees elsewhere in the village where they're needed and more appropriate. They have asked to have an exception to allow 3 years to obtain permits and to start construction. Usually when you get a conditional use permit, you're only allowed 1 year. They've asked for 3 years so they can get all the permitting in line. They've asked for a variance to allow that crops be planted within the solar arrays. Typically we require turf grass and things like that. They can get some extra points with their grants and their funding. If they do outgrowable kicks, so oftentimes people will have sheep grazing. We didn't think that was a good fit for Shorewood. So they proposed the idea of planting crops such as wheat there. In the agreement, we've talked about potentially allowing that, but it has to be, you know, an actual crop that is farmed, that is cut down and harvested at the end of the year, and not just a bunch of stuff that gets planted and ignored. The setback for Mound Road we just discussed, and then the setback for the gravel roadway. After we had scheduled and held the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing, they realized that they had wished they had asked for one more variance. So we're actually going to do a public hearing on that on the 24th. And that would be a variance that would give them 3 years from the point that the variances are approved to start construction. Typically, that's also a year, similar to what they asked for the conditional use. More significant probably than the zoning variances are the modifications or variances they've asked for from the subdivision and development regulations. The first is with regard to not constructing County Line Road. They'd be dedicating the right-of-way, but not constructing County Line Road, provided that it's developed as a solar farm. They've asked not to install sanitary sewer, provided that it's a solar farm, and not to install village's water system. The annexation agreement that you see, it's also got a bunch of other terms that aren't described here. Lays out all the typical terms of development, it lists the variances, it talks about the standards, such as for the construction of the utilities if it's not developed for solar. It includes a 5-year code freeze, which is what we typically see in an annexation agreement, and then has the typical legalese, like the legal remedies if somebody doesn't comply, the terms of the agreement, enforcement liability, and things like that. I did want to quickly address the question of taxes and the value. So I think we talked about a $1 million fair market value. If you translate that to a $250,000 house, that's about equivalent to 4 houses. And while it is considerably higher than farmland prices, it's less impact obviously on our services, but it's not the cash cow that you would think when you think of $1 million.
And how much money is that to the village with the 4 houses?
Well, right now it's nothing, but I haven't done the math, but
The
it's
4-house
it's
equivalent?
$1,000 a year,
About
maybe.
$1,200.
Okay.
That's
what
about
I
all we
thought
get
too.
out of that.
Okay.
I also believe there's a de-escalation factor because, right, we get the money when they're annexed, but when there's a certain amount that this will be worth when it's installed, and then it devalues over time. I think the expected life is 30 years. Staff looked at this and thought hard about our recommendation. We obviously have reservations about annexing a property that doesn't contribute to typical development costs like road infrastructure, water, and sewer. But when we look at it, we have to ask ourselves, is it better to have this within our corporate limits, or is it better to have it potentially develop unincorporated? Is this the right location for it? In the end, we feel that although we have some concerns, we feel like annexing this would be the best course of action. The Planning and Zoning Commission concurred, and they did recommend in favor of approving it. And when we're talking about the approval recommendations, we're talking about the annexation agreement, we're talking about the zoning to I-2, which is a general industrial district, the conditional use permit for the commercial solar energy facility, the subdivision modifications, and the zoning variances.
I know that was a lot.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, yeah.
That was a lot. So, I don't know if anybody, go ahead.
Can we go back to a map and can you show is it just that property that's asking to be rezoned to I-2?
Yes.
And is everything else around it residential?
So everything else around it, I believe, is zoned agriculture in the county.
In the county, but I guess what's our planning?
Our plan, if you asked me, hey, what do we zone this based on our plan, I would say we most likely zone it ORI, which is the Office Research Light Industrial District. This is one step heavier zoning than that, but it's also the lowest zoning that we'd allow a solar farm in, which is why they requested it. So we call for industrial. I would expect that the other properties would be one step down. And purple on the map is industrial.
Yeah. And then yellow is ORI?
Yellow would
Yellow
be
is
residential.
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 Yeah.
What would be the total length, I guess, in feet, that if somebody comes along with the water and sewer that's gonna go past them, that they would have to pick up?
I believe it's about 560 feet along County Line Road. Jeremy, is that correct?
It's much smaller on County Line as opposed to Mound where the prospective road would go. Just gonna look at the plans here quickly. Yeah, I'd say 500 is pretty good.
Okay.
Almost head on. And Natalie, thank you for the presentation. Just one point of clarification. I think you said 150 feet on Mound Road. for the dedication? I understood we were.
It would be 100 feet dedication.
Okay.
Sorry, I apologize if I
No,
misspoke.
no worries, I figured. A lot of numbers running around.
When do you intend on building?
As soon as we can. So we're requesting a 3-year variance just in case. I think realistically, it'll take us a year to do the final site plan review, identify the contractors, and start construction.
So likely a couple years out.
I think so. The construction itself is pretty quick. We're looking at it roughly a year build. So, very, very minimal traffic for a project of this size.
Question for L'Oreal. On that, the utilities, based on today's prices, what do you think that cost would be for the water and sewer to go past them in either direction here?
Well, we would estimate that the water would be around $400 to $500 a linear foot, same with the sanitary, so it's just doing the math of such. I don't have a calculator on hand, but about $1,000 a linear foot would be a good budgetary number.
It's 500 feet.
$500,000.
So $500,000.
And so to build that, another property would have to get right-of-ways to put in all those things through the solar?
So we would have the rights of way, so there would be the room there, but the actual improvements would be
Would
the
have to be
cost.
paid by somebody else?
Correct.
And then those people would control, whenever this property's developed, how much it would cost to tap onto that?
So theoretically, they could place a recapture on the property if we were willing. Typically, a recapture is good for 20 years. So if the timing worked out, it would work. I mean, maybe we consider a longer recapture.
So
But-
is that the concern of the residents there, that it, like, that cost won't be more? So this,
Right.
I guess that's the feedback from the village is like, really, I mean, they're asking, every variance is because they don't want to develop anything that's beneficial to the village, right? So it seems like the only benefit is it may or may not get developed otherwise by Kendall County, maybe.
The issue is they're meeting the requirements set by state standards. So if the village chose to not agree to this, obviously they would go to the county. We would have a hard time denying this on the county side, since this would obviously fit within an industrial zoning for future development for us, and it would meet the county requirements. So by trying to work with the vendor to get them to annex into the village and try to work with some of the requirements for us, that gives us the we're contiguous as we move through. But as you're referencing, yes, as unlike a standard development, no, they're not putting sewer and water in, they're not extending the roads. These are all concerns that have been expressed by numerous solar farm, nothing against the solar farm developer, but these are all been components that have been expressed at any solar farm development throughout the county. And these are the same concerns that are being expressed through neighboring counties and stuff as well, is to try to find that balance.
So that's why our planning, or I guess it's our comprehensive plan, is residential. We're saying it's
In that
industrial.
location, we changed it to be
We
industrial.
did change it, so
Yes.
that was part of that other change a while ago.
Right.
Okay.
So when I think about why do I want this property in Shorewood? Because there's 235 acres of good development property to the west of it that we can likely bring in and bring online, and it would be much more difficult if this property was developed in the county.
But it would be more expensive for that person than they'll be developing next to a solar farm.
Right, and
Yeah.
realistically, developing next to a solar farm makes it very difficult for the little guy who has to bear double the cost. If
Yeah.
you've got a large property that's developing, like a large business park that takes those 235 acres, they can likely bear it. The little guy, next door would have a harder time.
Can you go back to your one map that had the parcels?
This one?
And while you're doing that, I do want to address the recapture again, just briefly, because I hear the concern. But, to the extent that developer does have to develop the utilities to reach its property, that's the recapture provision that the village requested. Staff and the village council specifically requested this provision in here, so that, that recapture agreement can be put on file, so that when this property develops into something else, and there's some relief. So these are passive developments. If we're doing our job right, then we're not having to do much at all, because they go out there, they operate on their own, they're remotely monitored. We come out there for landscape maintenance, et cetera, but otherwise, you know, they're very passive and they don't require any utilities. They don't place any other burden on schools or anything like that. And so there's little incentive or reason for the project company to build any sewer or water, but we are open to making sure that, you know, there's the proper incentive for future developers to have to develop westerly as we discussed. So
And how many years did you say that was, Natalie? 20 years?
So a typical recapture agreement is 20 years, a typical solar farm is 30 years. Attorney Silverman could probably weigh in better than I could about whether you could do a longer-term recapture.
So I
30 or
hear what
40
you're
years
saying,
further out.
but you're saying we have a recapture agreement for 20 years, we have a solar farm that lasts 30, so it sounds like we don't have a recapture agreement in my mind, just timeline.
well, you still have a statute, and it sounds like Silverman's coming in.
Maybe, yeah, if Dave could weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do a recapture agreement for longer than 20 years with our home rule authority. The question is, is that really an incentive to a developer who's got to invest the money up front to wait 30 years to get a return on that investment?
It's just a make whole provision, and it's, you know, and what I wanted to address from the letter before is, you know, it's not something that, it's not a special incentive given to a developer. These are the kinds of requirements of solar projects throughout the state because they just don't use those utilities. And to the mayor's point, you know, there's the county statute is sort of the elephant in the room now. The state statute where, you know, the solar developers go to the county, they just adhere to the county standards, and the counties really don't have, you know, much discretion or any discretion if you ask some people. So, you know, we wanted to honor proximity to the village. You know, we're not here to, you know, pick a fight with the village at the county level. We wanted to come to the village, see what types of things we could offer and provide to the village to make the project a better fit, to bespoke the project to the village's standards, to comply with the village's zoning ordinance as much as possible, minus a handful of variances. So there was effort and good faith made on the solar company's part to try to work with the village on those things, understanding that, you know, we have to live in harmony, you know, for a long time, and we want to make sure that we don't interfere with the village's future developments as much as possible.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
But I think the village plans to be out there before 20 years from now, or even 30, so it's gonna put a thing on whoever wants to come out there, knowing that they're gonna have to pay for the utilities to get the extra. I think that's gonna kill the attractive look at that property out there that's adjacent to you.
But it wouldn't be any more attractive if the solar parcel wasn't in the village at all. You know, so we're agreeing to annex in to provide that pathway for future development into the village's limits. Because I think the incentive
If you
here
put
is,
that map back up one more time,
Oh, sorry.
you're okay.
Control room, please.
So if you reference the map, just maybe this will help put a little better context. Obviously, the green section is the current public works facility. That is the current village boundary. As you can see, the site referenced a little bit in the darker brown there, so the site that says S&E immediately to the west of Public Works is actively marketing their property. They are working with some potential buyers, trying to help annex that in and move that forward. As you can see to the west of the proposed site, the one says Dollinger's, and then there's a couple of other ones that lead out. Those properties are also for sale and actively trying to market their ground and want to be part of the village as well. So working with this vendor to put this site and annex it in is what gives us the continuity to allow us to continue village corporate limits through this site and continue to the west. Does there potentially create a little bit of a burden on somebody? Yes, unfortunately it does. But as the gentleman also mentioned, if we said no and they go to the county, now you have a 35-acre piece that's sitting in the unincorporated side. And it would further encumber any development going west around that. So as the attorney mentioned, this is a little bit of a balance of both worlds to try to find a little bit of harmony as you referenced on this project. And again, it is up for a first read. If anybody, we have the ability to waive the second read, move it on. If anybody wants to leave it as a first read for any additional questions or for clarifications, we can. Pardon me. But we're trying to make certain everybody understands it, trying to find that balance and being able to continue to move information forward.
And we've asked for the waiver of the second read because we have to bring the discretionary permits to the regulators by the end of February. Was it the loan commitment? Yeah, so our financing commitments are requiring the discretionary permits by the end of February to meet certain covenants. So that's our incentive in asking for, or that's our motive in asking for the waiver.
That's the motive.
Yeah. Tonight.
One thing I should also point out.
Could you explain that, to meet the necessary covenants? Why is that where we can not go to a second read? Explain that one to me.
We need the permit in hand.
Right?
Yeah.
Keep going.
So we would need that tonight, because if we waited until next month meeting, then we can't.
It wouldn't be next month, it'd only be 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks.
Just so you know, yeah, it would only be 2 weeks, just so you
Okay.
know.
Well, then
So
maybe that's.
if we don't vote this in, you're in a bind? You can't recover from that, or?
I would have to let Jeremy talk to that, but that was, my understanding was that we had obligations we were.
We're happy to expand on any of the details.
Yeah,
Did that
someone
help?
should,
Help
yeah,
out?
I want to understand that, please.
Yeah, so as far as the financing commitments are concerned, there's two things. The investors would like to see, as Ben had noted, the conditional use permit in hand for tax equity. And then the other piece is there are some application and grant timelines that are also surrounding those deadlines. So it's kind of a confluence of two separate things. We're not trying to push anything through or quickly without you guys having an opportunity to
Yeah.
interpret it.
If we go to the next meeting, it only gives them 3 days, that's kind of.
The second question is, can you recover if you don't get a vote tonight?
I think we can,
How
ideally.
so? What kind of bind does that put you in?
I mean, we're out on the capital that's been invested on the project potentially, which has been substantial to date.
So, monies that you need some sort of some sort of permit or something, or approval on your financial plan. Is that what that is?
I can't speak to the financial plan. It's just in order to apply for the grant as well as show the investors that we're making progress as expected. The conditional use permit shows that we've met that obligation.
In all due fairness, you guys did ask for a couple of continuations, though. In all due fairness, so.
And that was really just to get to the Minooka Fire Protection
understand.
District. And we appreciate your
I-
understanding and continuances.
But again, I want to recognize if any of the board members have concerns, but coming in, I don't feel that it's fair for you guys to make the reference. I can understand your concern of trying to have something and waive a second read. But on the same token, you guys had asked for a couple of continuations, trying to make certain you're dotting your i's and crossing your t's as well, so.
Yeah, we don't hear that a lot, where they need a waiver.
Right, so, again, it's up to whatever the board chooses to do, so.
100%. I wasn't trying to
Not
make a pressure statement or anything. I think we were just trying to make sure that everybody knew what was going on. And if you need time, then obviously.
No worries. Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions?
I think I would have a question that, and this would be more to the board members, is what do we think that we would find out that would change our decision from tonight that you would make anyways? You know, that would be my question, because
I'm ready to vote.
we always have questions in our mind. Because if anybody's 100% right all the time, I'd like to meet them. And
No, I just want to make sure everybody's on board.
if it's more convenient and it helps them out, it makes the job a little more economical. If we were gonna vote yes, I'd like to go ahead and vote yes.
Make the motion.
No other questions or
questions?
concerns? Make a motion to approve ordinance approving the authorizing an annexation agreement for RPIL 12 LLC and waive the second read.
Second.
Motion trustee Brockman, second trustee Amos. Roll call, please.
Carol,
gonna vote no. I don't see the benefits to the village or what the concessions that we're giving you guys and what we're gonna get in return, so, sorry.
Chapman?
Yes.
Selfridge?
No.
Amos?
Yes.
And Brockman.
Yes.
All right, item's been approved. Business item number 2 will be consideration for, yes, sir?
It's 5 affirmative votes. So you get a right to vote, but that, if my count is right, only brings that to 4 affirmative votes, so the motion would fail.
Go back, Dave, repeat yourself one more time?
The annexation agreement needs a 2/3 vote of the village board, no matter who's present. So that means it needs 5 affirmative votes. There have been, Lana, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 affirmative votes cast for it so far.
That is correct.
And it's an
The mayor has a right-
annexation
the mayor
agreement.
has a right-
Correct, on the annexation agreement, I vote yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that brings it to 4, so the motion fails.
Yeah.
Don't we have 4 of 6?
No, it's 2/3, the statute is 2/3 of the corporate authorities. Doesn't matter who's present, you need the 2/3 affirmative vote.
Yeah, and isn't 4 of 6 2/3?
It's 4 of 7. There's
Oh.
7 members of corporate authorities, 6 trustees and the mayor panel.
Okay, thank you.
So we would skip a vote on the next item, which is the.
Yep, so we're gonna pass on item number 2. And we'll move to business item number 3, which is consideration for approval of an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for a planned unit development for Legacy Fire. This item is also for a first read. Yep, this is for the Legacy Fire. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, can we
Yes, sir.
just back up to that other one?
Yep.
Knowing that this failed, that the annexation agreement failed, which is the end of this project,
With the village, yes.
right? I guess I would request, would any of the no votes like to change their vote? We can always go back, I think, right, Dave?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you have 2 alternatives. You could ask for a motion to consider, reconsider would be the proper way to do that. And if somebody that voted no could ask that it be reconsidered, and if that passed, then it would go on to the next board meeting essentially for reconsideration.
Yeah,
Is there a willing to motion to reconsider?
I would like the motion to reconsider.
That moves it to the next meeting?
Yeah, it has to be somebody who voted in the negative, so it would have to be trustee Selfridge or trustee Carroll, I believe, that would do that.
That's fine, that's what they want.
So we have
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is we failed a group home, which group homes for the handicapped are pretty beneficial things no matter what. And by accident, it was failed just due to the fact of the vote count. Turned out just like this. And they reconsidered, and this was back in the 90s. And I voted no at first because I didn't quite, it was my first couple of years on the board. I didn't quite understand what had just happened. And I actually changed my vote from a no to a yes. Because they are beneficial. We have about 5 of them in the village now. Nobody even knows they're here. And they do a great service to the handicapped people and things like that. So if we didn't have anything environmentally wrong with this or physically wrong with it, and it adds to our move to the west possibly, I just think it ought to be reconsidered.
still want to give that motion to reconsider then?
I guess.
So I have a trustee Carroll's giving the motion to reconsider. So Dave, for procedural purposes, will that just push this to 2 weeks to have the vote, or can we reconsider to have the vote now?
I think it calls for it to be sent over to the next meeting.
Okay.
And I'm
I
just,
don't have Robert's rules in front of me, but
yeah, and I have the sort of older version of Robert's Rules 36, which is the reconsider, and I think it can be voted on tonight if it's reconsidered. The motion to reconsider, if the motion to reconsider passes by a majority, then the first motion can be then re-voted on tonight. But if this
I think you ought to count your blessings.
Look, I'm not trying to ask for more. I'm just wondering. I just want to make sure we have the procedure right here because.
Correct, and I'm going to defer to our counsel though on that one.
Yep.
yeah, I could be wrong on that. The motion to reconsider couldn't be made later than the next meeting, but it could. I think I would agree with council that it could be voted on tonight if you cared to do that. Or you could reconsider it and move it over to the next meeting to give people more time to think on it.
Yeah, and that's just the record I was trying to make. If you want to move it to the next meeting.
So why don't we, since we have the motion to reconsider, why don't we just, for the sake of cleanliness, let's just move it to the next meeting. We have the motion to reconsider, we'll just bring it back in 2 weeks, and then it'll be agenda item 1, and we can move forward with that.
You'll have to vote on the motion to reconsider.
Okay, so with that, we have the motion to reconsider. Second?
Second.
So the motion to reconsider has been made by trustee Carroll. We have a second by trustee trustee Amos for the reconsideration. Roll call on it for the motion to reconsider on agenda item 1, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
Selfridge?
Yes.
Amos?
Yes.
Brockman?
Yes.
And Carroll.
Yes.
Okay, so item number 1, passed under motion to reconsider. This item will be brought forward in 2 weeks at our next board meeting, which will be February 25th, and we will address it at that meeting.
Mr. Mayor, along with the subsequent motion for the, I forget what order they were in, but I think they were all in the approval.
That was the next agenda
That was
item,
number
so
2,
we haven't
right?
even taken any action on it. So we will just move that.
And continue that one as well to the next
Correct. So
meeting?
we won't take any action on agenda item 2 right now.
Okay,
We will
so,
just leave it and we'll take action on all that in 2 weeks.
okay, then for the record, it's all continued to the next
Yes.
regular
right.
scheduled
Because
council meeting.
nobody's gonna take action on business item 2 without having the annexation agreement in place.
Yep, very well. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're gonna pass business item number 2, and we move on to business item number 3, which would be the consideration for approval of an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for a planned unit development for Legacy Fire. This item is also up for a first read. Trustee Brockman.
Okay, where do I begin?
Item 3. Item 3 for Legacy Fire.
There's quite a bit to cover here too, but happy to see these people come back. They were here back in November and showed us some extensive plans that they have for their building. So it comes here with a 5-0 vote. And if I remember correctly, there were no comments at the public hearing for or against. Do you remember that as well, Natalie?
I think that's correct.
Okay, but so if you could help us out and continue with that, please.
Sure. So Legacy Fire Apparatus has been in Shorewood for a number of years. They're operated by Ben Brown, and their main focus is on fire trucks, although they do other types of vehicles. They do regular maintenance, they do warranty work, and they even do some sales. They work with clients from Illinois, from Iowa, and from Wisconsin, and they are operating today at 600 Earl on a conditional use permit for motor vehicle repairs that was issued back in 2011. And because they've consistently operated, that conditional use permit is still valid. This is their site currently. They have a building, the driveway up on the north end, and then a gravel parking area, which they use to store vehicles. They really would like to make this a state-of-the-art facility and make it a safer facility where they're storing all the vehicles inside, so they've come forward with an ambitious plan. They're planning a complete building renovation that will be done in phases. When we took this forward in November, the plans were in good shape, but knowing that this was a spring project, we wanted to work with them to make sure that all the stormwater was figured out for the phases and everything was working well, so we did take that extra couple of months. Phase 1 is shown in blue. 70% of the new building is going to be built in phase 1. So that's just under 16,000 square feet. The area will consist of a loading area on the north side. On the west side, on the east side, there will be a 15-foot wide exterior entrance, and it'll be built so that fire trucks and other vehicles can come in on the north end and drive straight, drive into the facility where they can be worked on, and then they'd be able to drive straight out on Geneva. The second phase of the development will include the demolition of their existing building and some work on the site plan. They'll be moving one of the entrances and getting ready for the third phase, which is the construction of the green area, which is a new building addition, which will finish out their building, as well as some parking lot work shown in green. This is a site plan. They're planning a situation where basically all of the vehicles are going to be kept inside. So they're planning to bring the vehicles in, they'll bring them around back, they'll be able to pull straight into the facility and pull out the front when they're working on them. The bays will be such that they'll be able to have 2 fire trucks stacked in there, which will give them a lot of room to work on the facility. They'll have a full parking lot in front. One thing that's a little bit unusual about this building is because of the way they want to be able to pull vehicles in, there are going to be a number of garage doors. So there will be 9 doors in the large portion of the building, which face either direction, and there will be 1 door on the third part of the building, which will be for pulling in and out vehicles that they're selling. This is what the building will look like. It will be a metal building, sort of a 2-story look in the front, and then the more garage type look as you go on. Facing Earl and Geneva, the doors will be blue, so you'll see that there. And facing the north side of the building, which would face the building at 500 Earl, the doors will be black. They'll have a nice sign out front, and then they're really going to aim for a nice customer entrance. They do sell fire trucks occasionally, which are worth about $1 million, so it's really a big ticket item sale. They want to have a nice office in the front and a nice space for showcasing the buildings. Behind the building, they'll also have a tank so that they can test fire trucks and show people how to use them, and that'll be recycled water, which will be nice because they'll be able to have an underground tank that can then pump through the buildings. This is a landscape plan. They're planning to re-landscape the front and the corner. There'll be a number of overstory trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs along Earl and Geneva. They're going to put some parkway trees on the perimeter, and then along Geneva, they're going to have some ornamental trees. One thing that is unique about this project is the wide driveways, because they really do need that space to maneuver the fire trucks. So they're also going to put planter boxes between each door. They're planning to build a sign out by the street. This is what it'll look like. It'll be an illuminated sign with a dark background. And as part of the PUD, they've asked for a couple of exceptions. One, they want to landscape according to the landscape plan. They want to follow those specifics. They want to do pavement as shown in the final PUD. The biggest exception really being that it's unusual to have the large width driveways. And they want to be able to occasionally leave the fire trucks in the driveway about 20 times per year for no more than 3 hours at a time. They think they may have a fire truck out there as they're selling it, and it usually takes a couple of hours to show them all the bells and whistles. Other than actively exiting or entering the facility, they're not allowed to, there's a prohibition on parking at all in the front. Staff's recommended in favor of it, as has the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission was conditional upon engineering. All of those have been resolved.
Very good. Does anyone have any? Yes, sir.
And Natalie, did they project possible sales? Like how many trucks that they might move out of there?
I think there might be 20. The unfortunate thing is that they're tax exempt.
They're going to be tax exempt.
For what?
They're generally municipal, fire protection districts, city city sales, so they'll be tax exempt sales, generally speaking. But yeah, I think they talked, 20 to 30 is what they're shooting for, new vehicle wise.
Right. Yeah,
So-
so if only they were taxable, it would be very nice, but they're not, for the most part.
It's a nice renovation on that, it's a nice renovation down there on the industrial park down there.
I would imagine though, on the rare occasion that they sold a fire truck to a private company, like a refinery or something like that, we may get some sales tax on that, but for the typical government trucks, we won't.
For the landscape plan, they have to maintain that
Oh, yeah,
all season, all the time?
absolutely.
Nice
Learn something
improvement.
new every day.
Yeah.
Nice improvement on that.
Yeah. it's a
Any
nice
other
renovation.
questions or comments? If not, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for plan unit development for legacy fire apparatus and waive the second read.
Second.
Motion by trustee Brockman, second by trustee Amos. Roll call, please.
Selfridge,
Yes.
Amos.
Yes.
Brockman,
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
And Chapman.
Yes.
Okay, item number 3 has been approved. Business item number 4 will be a consideration for approval of a professional agreement with M.E. Simpson Company in the amount of $26,235 for our annual leak survey program. Mr. Noriega.
Thank you, Mayor. So this program is a leak survey of our entire system, looking for leaks throughout the system. It is good practice for us to be able to complete and keep our accountability on our system, and also remain good stewards of our precious resource. This program is a best management practice, also recommended by the American Water Works Association. As you are aware, with our lake water allocation permit from IDNR, we are required to remain under 10% water loss. So this will help us continue that requirement, meet that requirement. This is the first year of a 2-year proposal from M.E. Simpson. As similar to our past practice, we've done this in the past. I will continue to present to the village board on a yearly basis to reconfirm your approvals. Just to note, we do have approximately about 100 miles of water main that will be tested through the year. Our fiscal budget next year, our next fiscal budget requests that we will be requesting $30,000 for this program. If this is approved, this amount cannot be removed or adjusted. Staff is recommending approval of M.E. Simpson's agreement for professional services totaling $26,235 for our annual 2025 leak survey program. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions on the survey program?
Motion approved as read.
Second.
Motion by trustee Amos, second by trustee Selfridge. Roll call for item 4, please.
Amos.
Yes.
Brockman.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
And Selfridge.
Yes.
All right, business item 4 has been approved. Item number 5 will be consideration for approval of a professional agreement with M.E. Simpson Company in the amount of $26,455 for the valve exercising program. Back to Public Works.
Thank you again, Mayor. So this also is a best management practice recommended by American Water Works Association. They actually recommend that we perform valve exercising every 2 years. We have 1,300 valves in our system, and due to budget restraints and considerations, we are proposing that our village be divided into 3 sections, doing approximately a little bit over 400 valves a year to keep it within our budget. So we will be almost meeting the expectations of exercising the valves once every 3 years. As presented, this is a 3-year proposal from M.E. Simpson. As past practice, again, considering, I will be presenting this to the village board on a yearly basis to reconfirm your approvals. Our fiscal budget request will be $30,000 this upcoming year. If approved, this amount cannot be removed or adjusted. Staff is recommending approval of M.E. Simpson's professional service agreement totaling $26,455 for our annual 2025 valve exercise program. Any questions?
Noria, wouldn't this be is this our second or third year doing this?
This will be we've done 3 already.
Okay.
This will be the first again.
So this will be the first time cycling back through?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that?
Make a motion for the approval of professional agreement with M.E. Simpson Company in the amount of $26,455 for our annual valve exercising program.
Motion trustee Selfridge, second by trustee Carroll. Roll call, please.
Brockman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Selfridge.
Yes.
And Amos.
All right, business item number 6 will be consideration for approval of an ordinance adopting a federal motor carrier safety administration drug-free workplace policy. Public Works.
Thank you again, Mayor. So our current policy is from 1995. It's 30 years old. So over the last 3 decades, there have been a number of updates to the DOT regulations. To ensure that we comply with all of the regulations, it was recommended that we update our policy. Some of the updates cover criteria for testing. It also covers testing procedures, testing requirements, and it also adds a required drug and alcohol testing clearinghouse rule that went into effect back in January of 2020. The clearinghouse is an online database that is real-time to provide employers information on the CDL licenses. This policy has been reviewed by our labor attorney and also our union stewards. We are recommending approval of the ordinance adopting the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration drug-free workplace policy for village employees with CDL. This is a first read. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions on that?
When you say it was reviewed, did they,
You mean by the union
did they
employees?
say yes or no, or?
They had no
problem?
comments.
No
No
comments.
comment.
No
Okay.
comments.
Does anyone need to bring it back to another meeting? Is there?
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion for the approval of an ordinance adopting a federal motor carrier safety administration drug-free workplace policy and waive the second read.
Second.
Motion trustee Selfridge, second trustee Carroll. Roll call, please.
Carroll,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Selfridge,
Yes.
Amos.
Yes.
And Brockman.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, business item number 7 will be consideration for approval of an ordinance creating a new section 1-15-14 collection fees and costs, chapter 15, which is our administrative hearings and adjudication of the municipal code for the village of Shorewood. This item is up for a first read. Chief Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. You probably recall a few meetings ago, we discussed the amount of unpaid fines that we have since we started the adjudication process. At that time, it was just over $55,000 we have not been able to collect. Since then, it is now up to just over $63,000. In order to do that collection, we had to have an ordinance created, and that has been done by our council, MSC. It's in your packet. It will allow for us to have those fines collected, and it will also allow us for those fines not to be touched by the collection agency. They charge their own fines, so we will get all of the fine amounts due to us. We won't be sharing any of the amounts due. So, asking that you approve that ordinance so we can start collecting our money. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Is the 35% a norm in?
There is no percentage. We get 100% of that.
The 35% they add, right?
Oh,
Their
yes.
fee?
I'm sorry,
Right.
yes.
Is that customary for
Yes,
this type of collection, I guess?
yes, it is.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 7 on the agenda as read
Waive the second read.
and waive the second read.
Second.
Motion by trustee Chapman, seconded by trustee Amos. Roll call, please.
Chapman,
Yes.
Selfridge,
Yes.
Amos.
Yes.
Brockman.
Yes.
And Carroll.
Yes.
All right, item 7 has been approved. Business item
Thank
number 8 will be consideration for approval of a professional services agreement for the Jefferson Street and Illinois Route 59 TIF with SB Friedman Development Advisors not to exceed $15,000. Ms. Burkholder.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you this evening is a proposal from SB Friedman. They are recognized as an industry leader. You may recall we had a different firm doing some professional services when our TIF was set up. The partner taking care of that work has since retired. We were making some calls, looking for a firm that could get the village caught up with some required filings with the comptroller and hosting our joint review board meetings that we need to get taken care of. SB Friedman has the capacity to do that work and can get it taken care of. Any fees that we have to be paid can be borne by the TIF. So we're looking for your approval to get that done.
A little bit more of a housekeeping thing, we gotta get caught back up on some documentation, so.
So I see this is to get us caught back up, and then last year, and then going forward, we'll have to engage them or somebody else every year to do this filing?
That's correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion for the approval of a professional service agreement on the Jefferson Street and Illinois Route 59 TIF with SB Friedman Development Advisors not to exceed $15,000.
Second.
Motion by trustee Selfridge, seconded by trustee Chapman. Roll call, please.
Selfridge.
Yes.
Amos.
Yes.
Brockman.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
And Chapman.
Yes.
Item number 9 will be consideration for approval of a resolution declaring a surplus in the Jefferson Street Route 59 TIF allocation district and subsequent payment to the Will County Treasurer in the amount of $27,897.25. Back over to Ms. Burkholder.
Thank you again. This is another housekeeping item over in the TIF. The formation documents of the TIF included an intergovernmental agreement that predetermined what the annual surplus within the TIF would be. Once we declare that TIF, we turn that money over to the county treasurer, and then they allocate it out back to all of the taxing bodies within the TIF based on their allocation within the TIF. This is the second year of the surplus declaration because supposing that makes it year 7 of the TIF. So this resolution and approval to pay allows us to get that taken care of when we cut checks tomorrow.
Anybody have any questions on that?
I'll make a motion for the approval of a resolution declaring a surplus in the Jefferson Street and Route 59 tax increment finance allocation district and subsequent payment to the Will County Treasurer in the amount of $27,897.25.
Second.
Motion trustee Selfridge, seconded by trustee Chapman. Roll call, please.
Amos.
Yes.
Brockman.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
And Selfridge.
Yes.
All right, business item number 9 is approved. Item 10 will be consideration for approval of a resolution requesting that the Grand Prairie Water Commission approve a credit for prepayment of capital cost, debt service, and cost of financing, thereby reducing the village's members' adjusted share. And this is also back over to finance.
Thank you. This takes us back to last fall when we were having our conversation about that existing balance in our sustainable water source fund and how we were looking to allocate that going forward. We can dive a little bit deeper into it when we go through the capital budget this evening, but this resolution would give the village the authority to put that $20 million deposit into the Grand Prairie Water Commission. It would then reduce the village's percentage of the debt we would be paying then going forward. The purpose in bringing this resolution forward to you tonight, even though we're not looking to make this deposit until our next fiscal year, is it gives the Water Commission the ability to know what to plan on. They're looking at issuing their first big debt package, and it gives them the ability to time that appropriately. If they've got our $20 million, they can use that to float a little bit longer and time out a little bit differently. And secondly, it allows us as staff the ability to prepare the budget in accordance with your wishes in that regard. So if you want to approve this evening, that's great. If you don't, but you'd like to give us a little bit of direction on how you might like to go forward, we can certainly keep the Water Commission updated on where we're at. But I'd be happy to take any questions.
Big decision. Is this, my question on this, is this something, okay, I understand the prepayment and cuts our portion, that 125 million or whatever, it cuts that back, which then our payment down the road would be less. And correct me if I get wrong here.
No, you're correct.
Okay. But are we gonna have enough money on hand to take care of the internal infrastructure payments that we're gonna be making?
Yeah.
'Cause they're gonna be big.
Yeah, so the two big projects that we have coming at us that we were looking at, that we approved 2 meetings back now, we were fortunate enough to receive those IEPA low-interest loans to finance those big projects with. So taking this deposit and putting it into the commission is gonna leave us with about $14 million on hand in that fund at our low point. We're still collecting water service revenue, we're still collecting home rule sales tax into that fund, so we'll build that balance back up a little bit before those payments start getting big. We also have, in probably next summer, next fall, we will look to update our water and sewer rate study to see what makes sense in terms of our rates leading up to when we turn the switch. We will hopefully have updated information from the commission on what this will do to our payments in the near term and the long term, and what their updated budget numbers look like based on the data they're getting for the trued up costs of the construction projects. This leaves us more than an adequate cushion on hand in that lake water fund, though, to answer your question.
It also leaves a contingency if there was a problem to those couple of projects, if something were to go arise. So there is cushion in there to factor that in.
Mr. Mayor, between you and Ann, I'd like your opinion. Do you think this is a good idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's good enough.
I've got a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the IEPA loan, that's secured, right, for our internal projects? There's no risk of that with all the federal funds in question and everything?
No, that's through the IEPA loan right now. Everything's still status quo. We just, matter of fact, I was just in Springfield a week ago with the Water Commission, and those funds are still moving along.
Okay. And then I went back to my notes from last fall. So the IEPA loan was like 1.86%? Does that sound right? Somewhere around there? Mm-hmm. And then I think when we had that consultant in last fall, they were talking about the revenue bonds for this big water project were in the 4 to 5% range. Is that still the case?
I have not been to the water meeting, so I don't know what numbers they're floating, but.
For which component?
Well, I guess I know, maybe I'll ask my first question before I go to there.
Sure.
So you talked about they're going to do a debt issuance, so we need
Right.
to make this decision before then. Is this the one and only time we can prepay?
Yeah, so the prepayments have to go in before the commission issues any debt.
Any debt?
Yeah.
So we have to make this decision now, and then, but they're not borrowing all of it at once?
No.
But the
They'll
next
go-
time they borrow, can we prepay then, or no?
No.
Okay. Okay, so that answers that question. So then I have to go back to the interest rate that I think they're thinking they're gonna get. I guess that's really just an interest rate on this one round, right?
Yeah, so the WIFIA funding has been lingering around that 4% number. Right now, the Water Commission is trying to continue to work with IEPA because, as you referenced, that rate was about 1.8. When we were in Springfield, they believe even going into the next round of funding, that rate might just break 2, but they know that's still the interest right now. There's more interest in going to them, to IEPA, because of the SRF. There's by far a more competitive fund. The rate is better right now. So at some point, we're hoping that the WIFIA and the SRF do balance a little better, just because there's more money generally out of the WIFIA allocations as well. I hope that helps clarify that. Okay.
Because I guess I'm trying to think through like the benefit, right? I understand what you're saying, and just being conservative by nature, I understand keeping cash on hand, and I think there's plenty of funds in that fund, plus it regenerates every year.
Correct.
I say plenty, right, but it's,
Yeah.
just thinking like long-term, I know you said 1.2 million, but it's billion.
Yes.
Or maybe I misheard you, and that number could grow over time, right? So, I see.
Our portion is 100.
No, our portion is, correct, our portion is 121 million. That's our portion, correct.
So our portion.
Yes, our portion's 121 million.
Gotcha, all right.
Yes,
Of
Let me get a
that
question.
current estimate, right, wherever that might go.
yes.
So I think I look at it as that's probably the lowest number it could be. It could likely grow from there. So I see it as a pretty good investment. My thoughts, after talking a little bit with Ann too, is you may want to consider even going more if we feel like it, because I think every additional million we feel confident enough stretching into that prepayment will pay dividends over time. And I know we've talked about keeping that money available for other projects, but that savings would be that cash flow in the future years. So it's a risk reward. I completely understand that. It's a big decision. It's a very big decision.
It is, and we ran with the 20 million number. That seemed to be a conservative, safe number, trying to address concerns across the board from all different aspects that have been discussed, whether there's different infrastructure projects, other water projects, the lift station issues that may come up, if there's a contingency or something else were to happen here. But as you mentioned, this fund will continue to grow back. But this is another way of pay down now, and it's another way we're being mindful of our ratepayers.
Yeah.
They try to do what we can to keep the rates down as best as we can and manageable for our residents.
Yeah.
One question along the lines of Scott's first question, which was with the current events and the federal freezing, we don't feel it, as of last week, we don't feel as though anything's in jeopardy. Those monies are in place. We don't have any exposure on the receiving station funds that we need. We're in good shape that way, and we don't see anything in the future that's gonna change that. What have we been assured?
We've done a lot of checking around the last 2 weeks with that happening, and Mayor's been in Springfield. Jacques Plise has reached out to all the people at the Illinois Rural Water Association, which is where that money's coming through. We're told that the money that we had approved in that cycle is secure.
Okay.
We have every reason to believe it's as secure as it can possibly be. So we're still comfortable making the proposal we made with the caveats that Mayor made about holding a little back on the contingencies we might have laid out there with capital projects.
And the approximate total of that fund is 34 right now.
Yes.
I think internally there was some discussions, correct me if I'm wrong, Ann, at one point, Ann even felt we could even go upwards of, was it 25? It would be the extreme high end of going, but we didn't want to bring that forward. We wanted to stick with the 20 was a constant number that we have repeatedly talked about here at this level. So that's why it was proposed at 20 again right now. Unless, again, there's a decision from the board that wants to increase that prepayment, we can.
I'm good with the 20.
I'm good with the 20. I would consider up to the 25. But I think the 20 is a good investment. And if everyone else would feel comfortable, even if it's, I don't know if you have to go in increments of 5, right?
No, you don't.
It took me all week to get comfortable with the 20.
Sure. I mean, if everybody's comfortable with 20, why don't we just maintain that's a number that we've discussed? So there seems to be some consensus in holding the 20, so.
We'd be making payment when, roughly?
After the start of our fiscal year, I would look to put this on our first bill list in April and send the funds after that.
Well, I guess, do we have to vote on it tonight? And the only reason I ask why is if they know we're all comfortable with the 20, does that give us time to consider if we want to give more? I know that
we can leave it till the next meeting, and we can convey.
Yeah, I'd be
we can
happy
push it to the next meeting for the resolution if
that,
there's a discussion to
I'm throwing it
go
out
up
there,
for something. But I don't know if anybody else wants to go up.
If everyone else wants to stay at 20,
We can just, right, if you're comfortable staying at 20, or if there's any interest, then I think there's consensus to just leave it at the 20. Okay.
Deal with it for another week.
If that's the case, there seems to be consensus of leaving the resolution at 20 million for a prepayment. If that, I can take a motion to approve the resolution then. And then we don't have to talk about it in 2 weeks.
I'll make a motion, for consideration for approval of a resolution requesting that the Grand Prairie Water Commission approve a credit for prepayment of critical or capital costs, debt service, and cost of financing.
And motion by trustee Chapman, seconded by trustee Carroll. Roll call, please.
Brockman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Selfridge,
Yes.
and Amos.
Yes.
All right, item 10's been approved. With that, we will move into our department reports. Building. Mr. Steriak. Thank you, sir.
See that?
Community development, Ms. Engle.
No report, thank you.
Thank you. Finance, Ms. Burkholder.
No report, thank you.
Thank you. And we're gonna move over to parks. Here comes Ms. Katie.
Good evening. First and foremost, we'd like to say thank you to Troy Consolidated School District 30C, the students of Troy Middle School, the Plainfield Shorewood Area Chamber of Commerce, Mayor DeBold, Trustee Brockman, our clerk Lana Jakaitis, and village staff for participating in Youth and Government Day last Thursday. It was an overall success, and we are looking forward to hosting this program for many more years to come. Spring registration for programming will be open later this week, and the newsletter will be posted on our website. Paper copies should be arriving in mailboxes soon. And then don't forget that our Shorewood Shuffle is taking place, the 5K, on March 15th. Registration and more information is available on our website. Thank you.
Thank you. Police, Chief Arnold.
No report.
Thank you. Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. So we do have a little bit of weather that's coming, so Public Works, we were anti-icing operations today. We are ready. We're just asking everyone to give us space as we address the snow removal operations tomorrow when it comes in. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator.
No report.
Thank you. We'll move into trustee comments. Trustee Amos.
No comments, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Brockman.
Thank you, Mayor. Our February 5th meeting got canceled because of weather, so it has been rescheduled for February 24th. We have 4 agenda items. Extra jurisdictional review of an event venue on South County Line Road and West Baltz Road. Concept plan review for Southeast Frontage Road Industrial Development. Public hearing on the preliminary PUD plat for Auburn Chase. And the 4th one, Natalie, is?
The variance from the solar company for an extension on the terms of variance.
Okay. And like Katie said, I was here for the students' day, and they did a wonderful job, and they actually held a board meeting, and they did a wonderful job with that as well. And I think that was the first one they had since 2012, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah.
I think to get that started again was a wonderful idea. So
How much money did they spend?
I think it was,
Well, they told L'Oreal no on road salt.
I think it was a little over 19 million.
19 million?
Yeah. So, anyway, it was a wonderful day, so thank you, that's my report.
Thank you. Trustee Carroll.
No comment.
Thank you. Trustee Chapman.
No report.
Thank you. Trustee Selfridge.
Just a preemptive thank you to the Public Works and Police Department, because I think you have a long weekend ahead of you, and I know you guys are always out there and do a great job, so we appreciate everything that your departments do, and when we have weather like this, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion trustee Amos.
Second.
Seconded trustee Chapman. Roll call, please.
Carroll,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Selfridge,
Yes.
Amos.
Yes.
And Brockman.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Anybody wants to stretch?